Well, joining me now with more on the latest directions for the mobile phone market is Ari Zoldan. He is CEO of the Quantum Media Group in New York. Welcome, Ari.
Thank you, Rachelle.
So, are you surprised by how the global smartphone market is doing this year?
No, not at all. I mean, it's a 19, according to the IDC, it's a $19 billion repair market, and it's only going to grow right now. So I think the industry, the repair market industry, is certainly very excited about that.
So let's talk about this idea of the refurbished smartphone market. How is that sector doing, and just how much is that cutting into the new phone sales?
Well, people are holding on to their phones now, and they're holding on to it between 2 and 3 years because the pricing right now on a lot of the new phones are just very, very expensive. And second, companies like Apple are making their phones really, really high. They're high density phones that are really quality based. So there really isn't a need for the next 2 to 3 years to be able to upgrade your phone. So hence, people are keeping their phones longer.
So let's look at what's happening at the top of the leaderboard. You have your leading smartphone makers, Samsung, Huawei, Apple. How are they performing against each other?
They're head to head. I mean, obviously, Apple was the 800-pound gorilla, but that's certainly, they've fallen into second place right now. The Samsung, Huawei of the world are certainly leading it, and I do see that trend continuing over the next couple of years.
Now, what about some of these smaller newcomers like OnePlus? How are they able to jockey for position in such a crowded market?
The only way for them to do it is going to be driven by price. The problem is the industry is hoping that it's not going to be a race to the bottom as it relates to price. I mean, I don't think OnePlus is going to make any dent in the U.S. market, and globally, I think it's going to be really, really challenging as well.
So do you think perhaps in the midst of a slowdown, does that offer more opportunities for newcomers and startups to this?
It's possible, but at the same time, we've got the Apples of the world that have such a major brand following, and people love the phone, they love the culture, they love the environment that goes along with the brand, and it's going to be very, very difficult to be able to take market share away for companies like Apple.
Now let's look at some of the trends we're seeing. We know that several reports say that the smartphone industry is entering a recession or has already entered one based in large part on what we're seeing with the consumer slowdown. Do you agree?
No, I definitely don't see a slowdown. What I do is people holding back their phones, and whether it used to be turning it over every 18 months, now they're just prolonging it an additional year. So we're talking about 2.5, maybe 3 years. But what's happening, there's also a paradigm shift happening is the fact that people are holding on to their phones. There's repairs needed as well. A recent survey that I just saw, 1 out of 4 Apple phones screens have cracked over the past 12 months. So that repair market is strengthening.
And what about the budget market? Because while a lot of these phones are very high priced, you also see markets like Africa benefiting from some of these more budget-conscious brands. Explain the dynamic about how they're doing.
Sure. I mean, there's opportunities, especially in the third world countries, if you will, where you've got mass population, you have a need for broadband, but you don't necessarily need all the bells and whistles. So you're talking about a phone that has the ability to be able to download apps and to be able to process information quickly is good enough. You're not going to need they're not going to need a $1,000 or $1,500 phone. That's just not necessary. So if they can saturate that market with those options, I think there's value there.
Now, 5G technology, something that whether it's phone companies or car companies, everyone is very focused on that. How do you see that impacting the smartphone market?
Well, we're still a couple of years away, and right now it's a very, very big buzzword. But what's going to happen is when 5G actually rolls out, it's going to force everyone, for the most part, to be able to upgrade their phone, or because they're going to want to upgrade their phone for the premium broadband. So it's a win-win for the handset manufacturers when that happens.
And it certainly would come at a good time because some companies appear to be just innovating just to innovate, but not really offering any practical uses or that people need or that people can really put their hands on. How much of a role do you think that's going to play in the future of the smartphone industry?
It's hard. I mean, getting into the wireless carriers, and we work with a lot of startups and a lot of entrepreneurs, companies that are looking to break into the wireless market. It is so difficult. The barrier entry is very, very high. There's only about 7 or 8 major carriers out there in the entire world. So to be able to play in that space, I think, is extremely difficult.
All right, thank you so much. Ari Zoldan, the CEO of Quantum Media Group.